My name is Abby. I am going to be talking about verbal and nonverbal communication cues. I've always been one to watch people and watch people how they communicate and see how people interact with each other. So it's always kind of been interesting to me. Um, since I've watched people more and more throughout my adult life, I've also kind of picked up on my nonverbal cues at least. And I've tried to kind of be more aware of what I'm physically doing in a conversation to make sure that there's no miscommunication coming across. With that, I really try not to give mixed signals. So if I'm interested, I really want to make sure that my body language shows that I'm fully engaged in the conversation. If I'm not interested, I want to show that as well. So I want to make sure that there's no, like I said, miscommunication, whether I'm verbally communicating or non-verbally communicating with someone. With those two types of different communications, with the verbal communication, it's something that's very easily explained. I mean, it's something that it's coming out of your mouth. You're physically talking with someone. But that also goes along with written communication, can be considered verbal communication as well. So texting, email, those are all things that can be considered nonverbal communication, or the opposite of nonverbal communication. Um, that does mix in nonverbal communication as well, and you have to really watch your nonverbal cues within that format, because there are things that you can do in emails that come across a little bit differently. Sometimes you can't tell somebody's tone or mood when they're typing an email. Or if you're using a text messaging system or instant messaging system, those are all things that because you can't hear the tone, you can't see the body language, sometimes those can be misconstrued. So you definitely don't want to type in all caps or do a lot of exclamation points at the end of your sentence. Those are all things that can kind of point off that you're yelling or raising your voice, or you're very excited about something. So if those are things that you're wanting to do, obviously those are steps that you would need to take in the written form of communication. But typically, if that's something that you're trying to convey, that you're upset about something, sometimes it's easier to actually communicate that verbally instead of writing it either in an email or a text message. There are more nonverbal cues with the email and text messaging system that you can use that have become very prevalent, not necessarily in the business world, but also in a personal aspect or the entertainment aspect, is you have started to see a lot of emojis come in, and sometimes those emojis can be a little bit difficult to decipher on what those meanings are. So you want to definitely be careful about that. Other nonverbal cues that you will come in contact with is definitely body language. You can always tell when someone is nervous because it's difficult to make eye contact. You'll see some hand fidgeting. You'll also start to see some filler words as well. So you'll want to try to avoid those by just kind of calming your nerves. Also, with the word fillers, you want to make sure that that's a constant flow. And the more that you practice what you're saying, or the more that you practice not having those filler words, you can bring those out or pull those out of your speech and your communication a little bit easier. So those are different things that you can try to kind of conquer that. With also the nonverbal communication, you can also see if someone's angry, with standing with your arms folded, and you can tell that someone's closed off. Sometimes with other nonverbal communication, you can tell whether they're closed off because they're not interested in the conversation or what you're relaying to them, or that they're angry about something. Sometimes, though, it is something that is just a natural stance for someone. So nonverbal communication cues can get a little mucky sometimes. Sometimes they're difficult to decipher, especially if you're not familiar with a specific person or how they interact with people. So there's definitely things you want to be careful on. A couple of the things that we had talked about in class is showing somebody the bottom of your soles. So if you put your feet up on your desk, in some cultures, that's disrespectful. You never want to show the soles of your feet. So those are things that are differing in cultures as well. Putting your hands above your head, that's also something that shows that you are overpowering or that you have kind of an egotistical stance. So those are things that you kind of watch for as well. It was kind of funny to see the conversation come up about those nonverbal cues in class, because of the fact that there were some people in class that do those just because it's comfortable. So again, it kind of goes back to the fact that nonverbal cues can be very misleading depending on the person and depending on their background. So you definitely want to know your audience. You want to know who you're speaking with and who you're speaking to make sure that the nonverbal cues that you're giving and the verbal communication that you choose is something that they'll be able to understand, and also not have any type of miscommunication while you're presenting it. You also want to know your method with that as well. So if you are presenting a message that should probably be a spoken message, you don't want to send that in an email. That's something that you should probably think about maybe presenting to the group or to that individual, person to person, or over the phone, whatever it may be. If you know that it's kind of a sensitive subject or know it can be misconstrued, might be something that might be a little bit better to do in an actual verbal communication versus writing communication. So you'll definitely want to make sure that you kind of concentrate and know what is the best to deliver your message successfully. So you really want to make sure that there is no miscommunication. Communication is something that all different cultures have, all different people have. So it's something that I think will be ever evolving. I always enjoy, like I said, watching people, and it's made me more aware of what I do and how I interact with people to make sure that I really try not to make anyone else uncomfortable, and also make sure that my message is delivered the way that I want it to be delivered, and make sure that there is no misinformation provided or miscommunication during the time that I'm communicating with someone. So I really appreciate your time, and thank you.